Welcome into the 49ers Report by Chat Sports. Chase Sr. here with you. Appreciate all of you for watching today's show. Hope you're all getting set to have a great weekend because we have a great show on tap for you today. We're talking quarterback drama between Trey Lance as well as Jimmy Garoppolo, Colin, Cowherd, and Mike Silver doing a podcast on the Volume Podcast Network saying a couple of really fascinating things. That Kyle Shanahan not necessarily sold on Trey Lance. There are some concerns within the coaching staff about his development and lack of accuracy. And Mike Silver saying Garoppolo might be the better scheme fit. So we're going to unpack all of that. And basically first, to summarize the podcast, I listened to it this morning, been really busy with our NBA content here at Chat Sports. So it was great this morning to be able to just digest some 49ers football talk. So to summarize the podcast, then we'll get to what Silver and Cowherd had to say. The 49ers have been rebuilding Trey Lance's mechanics. This is something that we talked about over time. And because of that, they reported that this has caused some arm fatigue, and Trey Lance has had to miss practices because of that over time. They also relayed that there are some concerns in this coaching staff and from Kyle Shanahan that there are some concerns about Trey Lance's accuracy and his lack of fitting balls into tight windows, which is a really important staple of Shanahan's offense because it leads to yards after the catch opportunities. Mike Silver also saying Garoppolo, because he can have that precise element to his throws, is a better scheme fit. We'll also get to that a little bit later. So we start off with what Silver had to say about Lance. The 49ers think that he's really smart as a young quarterback. They love that. He is athletically awesome. He has a great arm, but we're not sure that he can take that great arm and throw that ball in those tight spaces really accurately. And so that's the only reason deep in his heart that Kyle Shanahan may want to hedge in terms of keeping Garoppolo on the team, because the team is built to win right now. And obviously, that's a fair assessment, and I think that's a fair report. Obviously, Cowherd and Mike Silver, who's a very credible NFL reporter, have some type of source within the Niners organization. But you watched the games last year, you watched the preseason, and one of the big takeaways was that Lance lack some of that accuracy. So that right there is a concern, and that's been the biggest point of emphasis for him throughout the offseason. But during minicamp as well as OTAs, Lance has been accurate, so you can stack that up against what they had to say. When you think about the Niners offense also, Kyle Shanahan wants his quarterbacks to deliver the football and let the playmakers like Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and the other wideouts and running backs, by the way, on some of these wheel routes, do work after the catch. If you don't have an accurate quarterback in this system, Kyle Shanahan will move on from you, he will lose confidence in you, and he will not be happy because it is so important to be able to get the football to your weapons in space and in stride so that they can make things develop after the catch. But we're talking about this arm fatigue thing again. And you go back several weeks ago when we discussed this, there was the arm fitness type of conversation that we were having. Now it's arm fatigue. And this is where things get a little bit weird to me, because when there are these takeaways from Lance at practice and in games, you never worry about the lack of arm strength. Sometimes I actually think he has to take a little bit less off of his throws because he throws the football a little bit too hard. But if they're getting this from somebody within the organization, that right there is really odd, because I've never worried about Trey Lance's arm strength or arm fatigue. Now, if you're tinkering with his mechanics and you're trying to fine-tune things in that regard and you're changing the motion, maybe there is some arm soreness, because if he's so used to throwing the football a certain way throughout his entire upbringing and at North Dakota State, then you change his mechanics a little bit and you change the arm angle or the actual motion, that can lead to arm soreness. You ever throw a baseball after not throwing a baseball for a really long time, your arm does get sore because it is such an unnatural movement for the human body to make. But going back to the OTAs and minicamp conversation, all accounts, literally all accounts, is that Lance was accurate, he looked great, he was precise with his throws, he looked confident, and he had this swagger about him. You stack that on top of the fact that people have raved about Lance basically being one of the leaders of this football team because he understands what's at stake and the opportunity that has presented itself for him to be the franchise quarterback. Peter Schrager also saying the other day that Lance straight up crushed it in OTAs and minicamp. So this accuracy conversation, the arm fatigue conversation, it might have been something last year. I don't think it's been something that has been paramount throughout this offseason, and training camp is less than 3 weeks away, so we will see at some point what the real deal is. More from Cowherd and Silver. Cowherd saying this is a little bit of a back and forth. The 49ers have been rebuilding his delivery, and he gets arm fatigue. It's not an easy throwing motion, and he needs days off, and they're worried about his accuracy. Silver then saying the arm fatigue is a really interesting thing, and I have heard that as well. Silver continued by saying this: last year, they were going to use the Trey Lance package. They were thrilled about it. That was going to be a big, big weapon for them. They started out doing it early in the year, and then they just stopped. The fact that they stopped using Lance at all, and they didn't put him in when the season was crossed up after that 3-5 start, tells me they were seeing something that was concerning. But remember we talked about the finger injury, and remember throughout the offseason activities that Trey Lance spoke with the media about that finger injury. That's when this comes into the equation, and this altered and certainly affected his practice performance last year, as well as him just being able to practice in general. Lance said that the finger injury was certainly a problem for him, and it did lead to him being a little bit inaccurate with some of his throws. So, again, that's why I'm thinking that Silver, Cowherd, they might have some of these takeaways, but this is old news going back to last year as compared to everything that we've been told and everything that we saw throughout the offseason. Now, we're only getting started on today's show, but this is certainly a debatable topic, and it's something that a lot of people are talking about and fired up about. So I want to ask you this question. With what Cowherd had to say, with what Mike Silver had to say, and everything that we've kind of heard over the last several months and basically over the last year plus, does this concern you at all? I want to hear from all of you in the comment section right now. Give me a C for concerned, JC for it's just chatter, and at the end of the day, they're reaching for narratives. Let me know right now in the comment section. Now, before we continue to unpack more from Cowherd and Silver, I want to tell you about Colin. A lot of you, the real ones, know that after our live shows air on YouTube and Rumble, we do a live podcast where you have the opportunity to call into the show and interact with me as compared to just doing the mailbags where I'm able to see your questions and read them out loud. I can actually hear your voices on Colin. It's an awesome app. It's like Twitter Spaces, but even better. And we do weekly live shows, and you have that opportunity to call in and spew a 49ers hot take, ask me a question. So you can download it on your iPhone or Android device by going to chatsports.com/49erscallin. We eclipsed 100 subscribers on the Callin app. So if you haven't downloaded it, do it right now. It's chatsports.com/49erscallin. Now, when it comes to Mike Silver, as well as Cowherd, I think he's one of the best radio hosts out there. Frankly, I listen to him every day, and sometimes he's certainly wrong, and that's why he does that segment where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong. So he is going to have opinions at times, and that's important to factor into this equation and this conversation. As for Mike Silver, he's a NorCal guy. He went to California. He's a legitimate NFL reporter, and he is pretty well-sourced. Like, he's one of those classic journalists. So for him to say some of the things that he's saying, I think there's something there. Again, I just think it's somewhat old news. As for the delivery, some people saying, yeah, the accuracy a little bit of a problem. The delivery is clunky. That's what Cowherd has said. That's what he's heard as well. It is a little bit clunky. It is not a normal delivery. It is a little bit clunky, and the ball does come out a little bit wobbly. But at minicamp, again, Lance was pretty accurate. He did play pretty well. He was good in red zone activities, and he was firing on all cylinders. So that's important to enter into this conversation as well. Why Garoppolo fits San Francisco, according to Mike Silver, and he's better in this offense as compared to Lance, at least as of right now. Here's what he had to say. He can fit the ball in tight windows. He hangs in the pocket and delivers and takes contact. He also plays point guard, in my opinion, and that's what Kyle Shanahan wants sometimes. That's why he was tied to Kirk Cousins. That's why he's had success with some of these backup quarterbacks. He understands the offense, has a good grasp of it, he distributes, and doesn't really try to do too much. And that is important for what Shanahan looks for in a quarterback. There is this old notion, though, that accuracy cannot be fixed for quarterbacks. But nowadays, accuracy can be improved upon. We've seen it with a couple of young quarterbacks over the last couple of years, and think about it. All these young developmental guys, high school, college, they're going to all these quarterback camps. They have all of these off-season trainers, and there are like video things that you can do similar to what Major League Baseball pitchers look at in terms of mechanics, and you make a little bit of a tweak, and then you're throwing the football, and fitting the ball into tighter windows. And that's what we've seen from Josh Allen. When he comes out of Wyoming, he had a bad rookie year, and he had all of the athletic intangibles. He had a rocket for an arm, but the numbers in his rookie year were not good. But we saw a monster jump from year 1 to year 2, and then last year he was also good. And year 2, after these numbers on your screen right now, where he completed 53% of his passes, 6.5 yards per attempt, interception percentage north of 3, yards per completion at 12, he went on to have a near MVP caliber season. And then you look at Trey Lance's numbers. Obviously, the sample size a little bit smaller because he frankly didn't play as much, but some of the numbers here a little bit better than Josh Allen. So to say that Lance can't make improvements is just ridiculous. He has had the want to and the work ethic to improve on his craft, and I believe he's going to be able to display that throughout this year. So before we get out of here, your confidence level in Trey Lance is where? Let me know in the comment section right now. H for high, L for low. Chime in, get that conversation going in the comment section. And as always, thanks for watching the show. Make sure you subscribe.